Unfortunately, the Special Representative of the Secretary-General on Sexual Violence in Conflict and Under-Secretary-General, Ms. Pramila Patten, is not feeling well and will not be able to join us today. I will hand the floor to Chloe Marnay-Baszanger, who is Chief of Staff of the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary-General on Sexual Violence in Conflict and Team Leader of the United Nations Team of Experts in the Rule of Law and Sexual Violence in Conflict. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Yvonne. And the SRSG expresses her deep regret for not being able to be here today, and wishes that this moment can still be very useful to all of us. So I will be delivering her remarks in her stead. Your Excellency, Francisco Fabian Treschow-Chepi, you have a name that's almost as difficult as mine to pronounce. Permanent Representative of Argentina to the United Nations. Undersecretary Fraser, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues and friends, thank you, and thanks also to our guests in the field for joining us today for the 12th official observance of the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict. As we gather today, I'm reminded of the profound responsibility we carry to protect the most vulnerable, the children, caught in the harrowing realities of conflict, who are often the most invisible casualties. Sexual violence against children in conflict is not merely a statistics. It's a tragic reality with profound consequences and a grave violation of human rights that leaves an indelible scars on the collective conscience. As I speak to you, I am reminded of the countless children survivors I have encountered over the past years, from the 8-month-old baby girl in South Sudan to the young girl whom I saw in a hospital run by Heal Africa in Goma shortly after she had gone under surgery for brutal sexual violence. At the time, her identity was still unknown to the medical personnel as she was dropped by some passerby. I also vividly remember the 6-year-old Sudanese girl who had been raped in a refugee camp in Awal, South Sudan, or the frail 13-year-old South Sudanese girl who was gang raped by the Rapid Support Forces element in her home in Khartoum in front of her parents. When I met her, she had delivered a baby by C-section just a month earlier. Conflicts are escalating around the world, in numbers as well as in severity and duration, with sexual violence used as tactic of war, terror, torture, and political repression by state and non-state actors. Tragically, there are harrowing accounts of children being also targeted. Recent annual Secretary General's report on conflict-related sexual violence, including the latest one for year 2025, paint a grim picture of children subjected to rape, gang rape, abduction, sexual slavery, forced marriage, and forced pregnancy, with cases documented against children as young as 1 year old. In 2024, sexual violence against children had even increased by a shocking 35%, with incident of gang rape rising dramatically. These violations are neither isolated nor confined to a handful of contexts. They're global in scale and demand a response centered on the rights, needs, and dignity of survivors and community affected. Some of the disturbing trends that we've noticed include girls being subjected to gang rape, abduction, sexual slavery during incursion of armed groups in villages, girls being subjected to sexual violence by extremist armed groups while being undertaking essential livelihood activities, others being collective raped in public in total impunity, girls being brutally raped due to perceived association with rival groups and or on the basis of their ethnicity. Migrant girls being subjected to human trafficking in border areas by illegal armed groups. Forced marriage of girls is rife in some contexts. It has even been legalized. Boys are also being subjected to sexual violence in the context of detention setting, including as a form of torture. The impact of these crimes is devastating. Children affected by sexual violence endure lifelong, you mentioned that, physical and psychological harm, often compounded by stigma, disrupted education, and increased risk of exploitation of further violation. And the impact extends beyond individuals, fracturing families and destabilizing entire communities. While the role of caregiver is critical in this challenging context, as the first line of support for these children, they, unfortunately often, operate in overwhelming adversity and in insecure environment. At the same time, the harsh reality is that at a time when violations are rising, humanitarian needs are mounting. Funding for service provision is falling dramatically. This is leading to major gaps in essential services and support mechanisms. Every dollar diverted is a child left vulnerable. Every funding cut is a lifeline severed. In the face of these challenges, through the interagency network, UN Action Against Sexual Violence and Conflict, which is chaired by the SRSG, the UN system comes together across diverse contexts to try to deliver an integrated continuum of care that strengthens services and restores systems supporting survivors, including children and their caregivers. The team of experts on rule of law and sexual violence in conflict is working with national authorities in several settings to bolster justice and accountability by strengthening investigative capacity, supporting legislative reform, and enhancing child-sensitive judicial processes. Excellencies, the protection of children in conflict is a shared responsibility that transcends borders. Today, we stand before you not only to bear witness, but to urge you to take action, to increase funding for programs that prioritize protection and rehabilitation of children survivors of sexual violence, as well as justice and accountability. Let us be the voice for those who cannot speak. Let us take decisive actions that reflect our commitments to end sexual violence against children in war zones. We need stronger laws and policy frameworks for the prevention and response to sexual violence against children. We need to expand comprehensive services, including education, and ensure safe and confidential reporting mechanism. Let us stand united in our resolve to protect and empower the most vulnerable amongst us. Together, we can build a world where every child is protected, valued, and empowered, with sustained political resolve and financial resources equal to the scale of the challenge. Progress is possible. I urge you to renew your commitment, both in action and funding. The time for words is past, the time for action is now. Change is not achieved in resolutions alone. It is materialized through accessible and quality child-friendly support in conflict areas. It is achieved when no military or political leader is above the law and no child is beneath the scope of its protection. It is achieved when survivors can reclaim their future and replace horror with healing and hope. Together, we can be a beacon of hope for these children, transforming their trauma into resilience and their despair into a promise for a better tomorrow. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marnay-Baszanger, for your remarks. I will